exception handling. So whatever I put in try block will be tried, that means will be run, and at any point of time there is an exception. So in some cases X paths are not found, X path have changed, and it would throw no such element found exception. All these cases it will enter the cache block, and in the cache block what I did is I just printed the stack trace. So what is the stack trace? Stack trace is nothing but the entire exception matter, at what point the exception started and what is the different levels of it, so that we can investigate further. That means fix them, debug them and fix them. So e.print stack trace will print it, and I just convert it to toString. So this will actually print e.toString. And if I want to throw the exception, I can throw it by mentioning throw e, and this will throw. That means it will stop the execution and will not move any further. Okay. So for example, if I get exception at this point, let's say, okay, the X path is changed a little bit, and wherever I use this button X path, it will not click obviously, and at this point it will enter the catch block automatically. Okay, and here it will print the whole stack trace, which I will show you how to simulate that, and it will throw the exception. That means it will not try to do the rest of the stuff, rest of the code, and directly end, and whatever is mentioned in the finally block will be executed at any cost, whether the exception is thrown or not. So if you want to execute some code, irrespective of whether the exception is thrown or not, just put that inside the finally block. So I just want to close the browser whether the exception is thrown or not, so I just put it in the finally block. So this is try catch finally blocks, which is a part of exception handling. Okay, so let's try and execute it and see how it runs in case of no exception, and I will also show you how it runs in case of exception. Okay, so I'm searching for something like flights booking in Chicago, and so same as the last example, it will capture the title of the page and assert it. That means validate. Okay, so that is closed. So what just I executed was the positive test case. That means everything went well, and even the test case has passed. Page title is correct, and that means as expected. And I also tried to log some operations, so wherever I clicked and whatever I did, and validations, and some nice starting and ending banners, test case starts, test case. So these are all called enhancements. We can do it at the reusable functions level, but here it is. So let's see what happens if the exception is encountered. Okay, so let's deliberately try to modify some XPath in such a way that it will not be found. The element related to the XPath will not be found. Okay, so let's try to do it at the very end, okay, where I click the enter button. So this is where I want to go. Okay, don't worry about this. This I actually modularize. So I'll show you how to modularize the XPaths in page object model. So button XPath. So finally, after entering the search term in Google and clicking the button, which is for searching the Google search term. So this is the button XPath. So let's try and modify it. So I'll just copy the existing one. Okay, so just in case, I'll revert back. So I'll just modify the second copy. So the class is so and so, right? Let's modify this. Let's add one here, and the value says Google search. Let's say Google searches and contains button key, something like button key. You don't have to do all of this. You can just do one, and it will actually fail. Okay. So it will try to click the button and it will try to fail. So let's see what happens. Okay. So what happened now? What is happening? Anybody? What did I do and what happened? Any guesses? Okay. So
Yeah, unable to locate the element your expert. Your expert is not working. Like unable to click.
correct. So what I did was I changed the XPath deliberately in such a way that it would be wrong XPath, obviously.
Yeah,
So like I said, it actually executed till that point. Till that point where I put the wrong XPath. So it tried to click the image. It actually entered the search term. It tried to this step is not the clicking the button. It is to escape the suggestion box, like I showed you on Sunday, right? So then actual clicking the button happens, but it did not happen because there was no such element for the given XPath. So that's exactly what it means. So this exception lies in the org.openqi.selenium, and the exception name is no such element exception. So it is actually descriptive. Just by reading the name of the exception, you can figure out what kind of exception it is. If you want to further read it, it says no such element, unable to locate element. Just read the first sentence. That's all you need to do. And it says it also gives what is the XPath it's trying to find. XPath which is wrong. So this is the XPath it is trying to. So you see, I have added one here, and I have added Google searches. I added in such a way that it will be very visibly clear what mistake we done. And KA. So this is obviously wrong XPath because we know it. We changed it intentionally, right? And you can actually skip this portion because it's not very elaborative. It's not understandable. So this is called going through the exception and finding out what is a mistake and try to fix it. So which is a part of debugging. Okay. So this is very important. So pay close attention to it. So this is the exception. We got the exception. Now just scroll down. It is actually repeated. So don't worry about it. Now we want to see where this exception occurred. I mean, we have intentionally changed it. That's why we know, but in some cases it actually was changed by developer, and we have to find out where this exception, and there are like 500 lines of code, so obviously it is very difficult to find out, pinpoint that exception line, the line way in which exception occurred. So the Eclipse, since we have printed the exception, right, it would be easier for, if we did not print it, we wouldn't have found it easily. We can still find it. So this is the whole exception stack trace. Remember in the cache block I printed e dot print stack trace, then sysout toString, right? So this is what it has done for us. So now the technique is do not come from the top, okay? So everything is repeated because I mentioned 2 times e dot print stack trace and sysout. So either you can print this or that. Let's go ahead. So this is sufficient actually, you don't need this again. I just wanted to convert to string. Either print stack trace will actually do the thing. So since I did twice, you are seeing it twice, so no worries. So first you found out the exception, why the exception occurred. So because the XPath is wrong. And second, you are going to see where the exception occurred. So the technique is come from the bottom, and the bottom line is the first line of occurrence of this exception in the test case in which you are actually executing. Okay, so not the one which is being called. Okay, so this is the test case we are executing, and what is the line in which the exception occurred. This is the line at which point the exception occurred. So you might see little differently, but that's okay. So we know that it is trying to, what is trying to do here, it is trying to click, that is the operation, correct? Now for clicking on any object, you need to locate the object first. And how do you locate the object? By mentioning its XPath. And what is the XPath? XPath is an XML path which is used to uniquely identify an object in the web page, correct? Okay. Now this is very tuckered, but we know otherwise, right? So we have actually changed the XPath here, but Eclipse wouldn't show this one because it's just a string, correct? So this is a XPath and just putting it in a string, and that means I am assigning this to a string variable. So the exception is not here, but occurred here, okay, according to Eclipse. But according to us, the exception occurred here because this is where it is wrong, right? So both are right and both are right. So because it is called here, and this line is showing exception. Now we have to figure out what part of this line is actually throwing exception. Now driver dot find element by XPath, everything is okay because the exception doesn't say anything about driver. Driver is fine, and nothing about find element, nothing about clicking. So it first, it actually says or complains about the XPath itself right here. So by combining this, what happened and where it happened, I can easily figure out that the exception occurred here. Now what I will do, I'll just simply control click this. Okay, so control click will take me to the original position in which exception occurred. Now I am back to the original position where I can actually investigate and see. Now this is what I'm going to do. Control C. Okay. Now, okay, so now I have figured out, right? Now what I will put is, I will actually put a debug point. Okay, so let's do it the real time because we already know, that's fine. But in some cases, I don't know whether this XPath is correct or XPath is wrong or application is not rendered completely. So in order to investigate further, I have to put a debug point and run it again. But this time I will debug as, not run as. So what happens when I debug as, it will run until the debug point or break point and halt. I mean temporarily stop it. Okay. So this is where it stopped. Now let's investigate further. Okay, is everybody able to hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so the connection was lost for some time, so I don't know whether you are hearing. So I'll repeat what I'm saying. So what I was doing is I halted right here. So this is where I put the breakpoint, right? So it was executed till here and it halted. So this line which is highlighted, that means it is ready to be executed. It is not yet executed. So what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to investigate whether the XPath is correct or not. So I'll copy the XPath and open the DOM. So you know how to open the DOM. More tools, developer tools. Okay. Now I'll open Control F here and paste it over.
We cannot see your screen.
Okay, are you able to hear me now? I think it was disconnected.
Yes.
Okay, so it was frequently getting disconnected because internet is going. Okay, so button XPath and I copied it. Okay, now I controlled F and searched for it. So what is happening is I'm getting 0 of 0. What does it mean?
Yes. Nothing. Next path.
Yeah, it means the XPath that we have provided is not matching anything, any object here. That means there is no object for the given XPath. That means XPath is wrong. Now what I have to do is I have to find it out. So let's see. It contains class and I try to consider the complex XPath. Okay, I'll explain what is actually going on in the XPath. So let's try to investigate it further. Okay. Now all I need to do is just compare this highlighted portion with my XPath. Okay, so the class is, where is the class? So the class is for the div. Okay, actual input is here, but I also try to provide its parent. So parent class is fpdolc blah 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 ae, right? And if I compare fpdolc vlc ae and I see there is a difference 1. Okay, so let's say there are more differences, so just to avoid that I'll copy paste here. Okay, delete this and paste it here. Then okay, so div is its parent and its child is div with class so and so. So I started off from here, div and div. Okay, not this div, there is one more div on top. Yeah, this div, and there is one more div whose class is this, and we corrected that, and whose child is input here, right? So right below, this is the parent, this is the child, and whose value is, let's try to see if it is correct or not. All we are doing is comparing, right? Google search, here the correct value is Google search and the wrong value is Google searches. So I will correct this too, and let's proceed further. And contains name button k. So name is equal to button k, btn k, and I mentioned btn k. Okay, I mentioned in the sense in real time. It could be before like this, and the developer has changed it to btn k. Let's say that's a mismatch. Now we are correcting the mismatch, and bingo,
Now is
we
a
got the match 1 of 1. So what I do is copy this and paste it in your code. So I'll paste it here. So everything is back. I know because we have changed it, that's fine. Now it will ask because the code changed, it will try to continue here or restart. Restart means it will start from the beginning. Terminate means terminate this code execution and you can start over manually or continue. So we can continue. So how do you want to continue? There are three options. These three options are blocked. So let's continue because we corrected it. We don't have to step into step out. Step. Okay. So anyway, it was terminated. So let's start over. We have corrected the code. Now, when you're debugging, it will be there here. So you have to switch to Java perspective and close this. It's a little bit hassle. Okay, so let's try and execute it now. You don't have to debug right now because we already debugged and stopped here. We corrected the code. Now let's try to run it. Run as Java. So the whole process is called debugging because we try to make the code bug free, fix the bug and make it work. So now it is working. So the whole process is made possible, the debugging process, because we put the code properly in the try catch block, correct? Otherwise we wouldn't be able to properly. So it tried the code, whatever code executable code we wrote, and any exception occurs, it will enter the cache block and it will print its stack trace. Then we figured out where the exception occurred, what is the exception, then investigated and fixed it, and then rerun successfully. So this is the whole process we need to follow every time. So whatever you want to do finally, just put it finally. So the finally block is meant for in case of exception or no exception, this will always be executed at any cost. So even in exception case, the browser was closed, and even no exception case, the browser was closed. So no, both will work. So the final block is to execute in case of exception or no exception. Terminate because okay. Now I will explain what does it mean by this complex XPath. So the XPath that we have seen on the Sunday was very simple, right? That means probably I must have shown you this much. Type of object. I mean, this is a partial match. Full match is @name is equal to button k, and partial is most recommended way of doing it. So we will follow the same. And input contains is a keyword which basically matches name, and if it contains a partial word bt and k, then it would be match. Okay, so now what happens if this is still not providing the single match? This is still correct, but you have to work on the XPath until you get the one-of-one match, single match, unique match, right? Now I can take combinations of property values and also include parents, children, siblings, everything. Okay, so ultimately my goal is to single and one and only one match. That is your goal. And for example, there are two matches, let's say, with this XPath. Okay, so three matches. Now I want to provide one more value. So you already saw one more property called value, and the keyword to combine these two XPath or these two properties of this object is by using and is a keyword. So what I'm trying to do here is input is the object name. Okay, so input is object name and contains name property, button key is a value, and this is not providing me the single match, so I tried to include one more property by combining and using and I can combine, so you don't have to repeat input again. Okay, so if you see the square bracket is covering everything, so contains this and this and contains this and this too. Value @value is the property name and Google search is the property value, and close it. So I'm completely covering this with the square bracket until here. Okay, so this is the whole XPath. Now let's say this is also not providing the single match. Let's say it is saying one of two. Okay, so that means there are two matches with this XPath. Now what I try to do is I try to add its parents. Okay, what are its parents? Let's say whatever is right above, that is a parent. Whatever is right below is its child. Okay, if it is on the same line, it's a sibling. That's what I told you, right? Now let's say div is its parent, inputs parent. So you put it here, and the double slash means there could be one or many relatives in between. That means it may not be the immediate parent, it may be grandparent or great grandparent or whichever. So just to indicate that relativity, I put double slash. If you actually put single slash, that means input's immediate parent, father or mother, is div. Okay, so just to avoid the doubt, whether if you're doubtful, like if it could be immediate parent or it could be distant parent, just put double slash. Double slash will always work. So now div is its parent, and you have to provide its if it is still not showing the single match, you have to provide its property and value combinations again. So div contains, this is a property name, this is a value, and bingo, it's a match. Okay, so let's say it is still not a match. Now what I did here is I also provided one more parent of it. Okay, so div. So this is all, like, you have to work till you get the single match. There is no hard and fast rule. So first work from its descendant. Descendant is input, the uh, object in question, that's a descendant. And I wrote simple XPath first. It did not work. I wrote the complex XPath by using AND keyword. Still it is not working. Then I incorporate its parent. All right. Then still it is not working. You go backward. I provide one more parent. Let's say it's still not a match. You provide one more parent. It's property value combination. So ultimately it will definitely give you single match. That's for sure. So all you have to do is just diligently work on the XPath. That's why I said XPath is totally different language in itself altogether. So the once you find out the XPath, then it will be easier to operate upon it. Okay. Any questions so far? So far I have explained you the XPath, complex XPaths, and the exception handling within the test case.
Sangam, can you explain again the try case? How you putting in there? You just selecting all of them and putting the try case?
Sure. So on Sunday you already seen the basic test case, right? Let's say that one look like, I'll make it look like as if it doesn't contain any try catch block. Then we will incorporate the try catch so that you will understand better. So on Sunday I showed you the code without any of this, correct? No catch, no finally. This is how it look like. It will still work. There are no errors. You see, no red colors. Let's try and run and see. Make sure if it is still working. There is no problem. The problem might occur. So you have to think in advance. What if the problem occurs? Then in that case, the exception handling will come handy. See, this is still working. But if you try to change XPath or any other value wrongly, then it would fail. So in that case, we would definitely need the exception handling. Okay. So what you have to do is, once you write the piece of code. Now I did not put this thing in the try block WebDriver initialization, because I would need some stuff which should happen before the try block, like basic initialization stuff. So this is the initialization stuff, setting the system property and WebDriver. So instantiation, initialization, you don't have to insert inside the try block. So I will start from after the initialization or instantiation. So this is the whole code, right? So now I select, okay, just go till the end of it, then we'll make correction. Just right click in it, and there is a option called surround with, okay, and then there is sub option called try catch block. Okay, don't go for the try multi catch. Multi catch means you can I can catch multiple exceptions. One try, many catches, catch, all this. So you don't need this. So we can go with the general exception, which is exception in case you want to catch multiple exceptions, like no such element found exception, do divide arithmetic exception, divide by 0, file not found exception, something like that. So you have multiple, but you can still make it possible by choosing the single catch. I'll show you why. So once you select, automatically it will surround your piece of code with try block. Okay. This to do because it says what do you want to do, and automatically exception means single exception. Single exception is the topmost. This will cover all kinds of exception, all kinds of runtime exceptions. That means whatever the exception may be, it could be no such element found exception, or file not found exception, null point exception, arithmetic exception, any number you name it, all will be called in exception. Okay, you can also throw exception. This either you need, so not need, both are not needed actually. Okay, so we have incorporated everything in right. Can you hear me? Okay, so we are back again. Again, was disconnected. Okay, so what I was explaining was I incorporated everything in the try catch block. That's what you have already seen, right? Now catch block already has e.print stack trace, which will print whatever we want to print, and we want to do something in case of exception or no exception. For example, exception is thrown, let's say, but if exception is thrown at this point, let's say, where here button click, okay, and if exception is thrown, it will come here and it will not execute anything, and it will simply stop there. And if I want to throw the exception, I can throw it page down. Yeah, so what I'm trying to say is I want to put this in a finally block because I want to do it in case of exception or no exception. So simply add the finally block and just put this piece of code. So now if I execute, it will run properly. I mean, if there is no exception, it will still run properly. Now, like I did before, if we deliberately or unintentionally change something is changed in terms of XPath, it will throw the exception. Okay, then what you have to do is you have to investigate further by looking into exception. So since one of you asked me to explain again, ఇది చెప్పాలి రమేష్ ఏదో చేస్తాం ఈ 10 సార్లు పోయింది ఇప్పటిదాకా. Okay, so I ran with the wrong XPath and it threw the exception. So how do you find what is exception? So just read it and you see exception name is no such element found exception, and the XPath that we have used is here. Okay, XPath is here. And where is the exception? You can click on this, and this is this is the last exception in which your test case. And if you're calling some function, let's say we are not calling anything right now, so in this is being called, and in this is being called. If you want to go to the root of the exception, you might want to go further. In this case there is no need. Okay, so just click on this, and clearing is a problem. Okay, so let's see why clearing is a problem. Let's run it again. I changed it somewhere else, but it is showing clearing. Okay, because the internet was disconnected. That's okay. Let's rerun. Okay, now it will show the exception correct line. Okay, that's what I was wondering. Okay, so let's see again. No such element found exception, and button key bingo. So because this Google searches was not correct, so it's supposed to be Google search. And where did it occur? It occurred at this line. So if you go here, it is trying to click. Like I said, since we already know it's XPath related, all you do is click on the XPath. XPath is here is, instead of putting the whole XPath inside, I created a string variable and put the string variable inside. That is simple. Okay, and you investigate here. Here you see, and like I said before, you go to the page, open the DOM, and try to validate the XPath, and XPath is not a match. Then you actually compare those values with the actual property and value. Then the value should be Google search. Then immediately you would correct it. Okay, so then when you run, it won't occur. So this whole process is called debugging. All right, so you have to do the same every time. Okay, so now it is correct. So did you get it? Everybody got this? Any questions?
No.
Okay, great. So if you have any questions, tell me right now, because this is the same process. I explained 2 times. Okay, and if you want me to explain one more time, I can explain, but you have to get everything whatever I just explained. So what did we learn just now? 2 things. One is the exception handling, and the other is
Debugging.
debugging. Correct. So you should at least remember what is being taught. So I will send you this class and you can play with it. Okay, so that you will get a hang of it. You will get hands on.